What is the strangest thing you've witnessed that you can't explain to this day? I was lying in bed with my girlfriend watching TV. We're the only ones in the house and the shower turned on. Like a steady stream, not just dripping water. I got out of bed. Terrified. Walked into the bathroom and turned it off. Had to turn the knob 90 degrees to shut it off. Never happened before and hasn't happened again, and it was a tight handle. Not really loose, as if its own weight could turn it. Damn ghost plumbers. I was taking a shower. I was the only person in our bathroom. Small shower, toilet, and sink. All of a sudden the lights went clean off. Now I'm showering in the dark. Power outage. Right? That's what I thought. Until I stepped outside of the shower and discovered the light switch had been flipped to the off position. I was walking home from the movie theater with a friend neighbor of mine. It was about 8:00 p.m. and the walk took us down some major roads and through the suburbs. 45-minute walk through residential and commercial areas. We saw absolutely nobody the whole walk. We saw no cars, no people, nothing. Well, not quite nothing. We did see the creepiest f***ing shit ever. An ambulance. Parked outside a house. Lights on. Doors open. No paramedics to be seen. Just sitting there in silence. The whole thing was like a goddamn zombie apocalypse. It was insane. To this day I have no idea what was going on. I have a large floor-to-ceiling, wall-to-wall window in my office that overlooks an intersection. It's one of the busiest intersections in my city, and because of the layout of this intersection is plagued by traffic shenanigans all year long. Shenanigans being crashes, fender benders, police traffic stops, people not paying attention to the right turn only and ignoring the no left turn here. Semicolon. One day I see a dude fall into the road as he approached the intersection on his bike and get hit by a car. Car was going maybe 20-25 mph. I happened to be looking out and saw WHT happened. I'm only on the 3rd floor, so I run downstairs to help this guy only 20 feet from the building and just to be his witness. I get down there and the biker, his bike, and the car were gone. I asked pedestrians if they saw anything. Nobody did. It was strange, and I think about it now even a couple years later. I could only assume that the car ran, or maybe they took him to the hospital. But so quickly? It took me 20-30 seconds to get downstairs and they were gone. One time when I was maybe 14, 24 now for reference. I was standing in my driveway swinging a stick around. It was night time. I think I was waiting for my parents to come out since we were going out to dinner. Anyway. I randomly pointed the stick at the sky. And the star I pointed at got brighter and brighter and brighter. Until it was maybe 4-5 times brighter than any other star. Then just rapidly faded out. My only guess is that a meteorite entered the atmosphere and just so happened to be headed straight for me. And burned up before it could get too close. But it was very strange. I have never seen anything like it again. For all I know I blew up a star. That'd be one hell of a fast explosion though. Supernovas usually last days, if not weeks, and are much brighter than whatever it was I saw. Semicolon. Before anyone asks. Yes. I tried pointing the sky again. No further potential civilizations extinct at my hand. Stupid stick must have had only one charge, lol. Edit. Fixed a sentence. When I was walking to school, I saw a postman riding a bike. When the postman crossed the pillar that was near him, he started walking. And the bike was just gone. I even checked behind the pillar and there was nothing. OP was on some sort of Norwegian hidden camera show. When I was younger, elementary school, some days I would come home from school and see the shadow of a man in the window of my house. Sometimes I would just notice him in passing. Other times I would only see him when I got close and jumped back. Every time I tried to see him again he would be gone. Now I don't come home at the same time. So I haven't seen him in about a year. But if I'm home at around 3 p.m. My dog will usually start barking at that window for no reason. I don't know why I could only see it when I came home at 3 PM from outside the house. But it's what happened. More info. There's nothing in the window tall enough to make the shadow I saw, and no one was home most of the time when it happened. Black helicopter. No sound. I ran outside my house to see it and it put a spotlight on me. Was probably 30 feet off the ground. No sound or downdraft. Around 93-95. UK. When I was little and got in trouble, my mom used to make me go upstairs and look out the bathroom window. There was a cow on our roof and it really scared me. I remember being threatened with this punishment. Do I need to take you to see the cow on the roof? Honestly, it was terrifying and I can still see the image of that cow looking in at me menacingly through the window. The problem is, there's no way there was a cow on our roof. Also, I have tried finding images online of a cow that looked like this one, and it doesn't seem to exist. The best way I can describe its coat is calico. There were big black patches of fur over each eye. Kind of like how a killer whale appears to have much larger eyes than it really does due to skin color. Of course, no one in my family knows what I'm talking about now, but I vividly remember this happening on more than one occasion. Okay, not the strangest. I have no idea what that would even be. But once I was at a hotel pool. There was a mother there with 2 kids, I'm assuming she was the mother. They called her mom. And the kids looked stereotypically Latin American and the mother looked stereotypically European. Anyway, whatever they actually were, they looked different from their mother. The kids spoke perfect English with no accent. And the mom, when she talked to the other woman she was with, maybe a grandma or something, she spoke perfect English with no accent. But when the mom would address the children in any way, she would do it, in all seriousness. Not in a joking manner, with this really bad, fake Mexican accent. I have no idea what was going on there, but I watched this go on for like 2 hours until they left the pool. I was baffled. People confuse me sometimes, but this was a whole other level of WTF. Not me, but my dad threw bags at United in Chicago for 20 years. He was at gate C-17 during the famous UFO incident. And he said without a doubt it was a UFO. He and everyone else, to include pilots, were pulled in by a bunch of suits and told not to speak of it or they would be fired. Saw a guy in an elaborate clown costume, looking very slumped over and sad, walking in front of a fancy building in downtown Charlotte. As we drove past him, I watched him walk directly to a giant marble orb statue that was in front of the building, wrapped his arms as far as he could around it, and start relentlessly humping the thing. Blank express on his face the entire time, and was still doing it as we turned onto a street a couple blocks down. No cameras that we could see. Not one person stopped to gawk at the spectacle. Nothing. It was like a clown humping a giant marble was as common as riding the bus or something. My friend lived in the middle of nowhere. Her house was surrounded by fields without people or homes for miles. One night we were sitting in her barn and we heard footsteps running towards us. We looked outside the barn doors to see a massive blue light glowing in the dark and moving steadily towards us. We hear the footsteps and see the light, but can't see anybody causing it. We freak out and take off running to the other barn and locked ourselves in. For the next half hour we could hear something circling the barn. Eventually it faded away and we ran to the house. I assume it was a person obscured by the darkness and holding a massive flashlight, but I don't know why they came after us or what they were planning to do. I walked past a mirror and saw a different person. Looked at the mirror while I was passing quickly and it was someone else. Different color of hair, height. Or that was the only time you've seen your true reflection. When I was 12 I was helping out at a local dairy farm. One of the heifers was acting weirdly. It was stumbling and its eyes showed white all around as though it were terrified. It stumbled around the corner of the barn, so I followed it, and around the corner stood a middle-aged woman in a grey uniform with heavy looking dark brown leather boxes sewn to the upper sleeves. She was silently sobbing and it looked like she was bleeding from one corner of her mouth. She was holding a small clear thing that looked like a handle, notches for each finger, for something bigger. She looked up and saw me, made a perfect O with her mouth and winked out of existence. I ran to get one of the workers and half dragged him back to the spot. There were smallish boot prints in the muck leading along the side of the barn. A deeper impression where she had been standing. But no prints of her walking away. The worker mocked me for the rest of the summer for running to show me nothing. We moved into our house about 5 months ago. Not long after, my wife found a penny on the porch. She picked it up and didn't think much of it. Till a few days later she found another. A few weeks later, another. So far we've found 8 pennies in the few months we've been here. I've tried googling it to see if it's some kind of viral prank or cultural tradition, but I can't find a thing. Spiders are paying the rent. All outside. My stepmom's dad used to come home and give her the change in his pocket for her piggy bank. 40 years later when he passed, she would find pennies around her house that she knew she didn't put there. You just reminded me of that. The night sky lighting up bright as hell for a split second. No explosion or crack of thunder. Happened while jogging. Could have been a transformer going out. When kiddo was small, I was awoken one night to what I thought was my kid saying mommy. I got up, turned on the hall light so I could check her without blinding her, and saw a small girl child push herself away from the bed. I remember thinking it was my kid. Same haircut. Same hair color. Those were the only distinguishable features I could see in the dim light. Turned on her light, asking why she was out of bed, and stopped short cause she was still asleep and nobody was in the room. Jerky star. My friends were at a beach in Monterey one night in an area notoriously dark. So it was a great stargazing spot. We were all lying on our backs on the beach and saw this star suddenly bolt back and forth in a very jerky manner. Then zoom away after a few seconds. All of us freaked out a little but assumed it was some weird plane, satellite, whatever, and laughed it off. Then maybe 10 minutes later that same jerky star came back and jerked around some more. The movement was so strange and unnatural and we were all sufficiently freaked. Read. Fear discomfort. Was looking up at the night sky. And everything looked completely normal. Then suddenly a few lights that I had assumed were stars suddenly decided to leave. They all moved in perfect synchronization, without the distance in between them changing. A combination of aeroplane and stopped clock illusion. Maybe? In that. The 3 lights were all on the plane, which is why they continued to be in fixed positions relative to each other. And it was moving continuously the whole time even if you initially perceived the lights as being stationary. A friend and I were walking around during a snowstorm in our little settlement of a town. Off in the distance we saw green flames. Not a light green but a really dark green and super bright. We go back to his house and grab a couple rifles to go check it out. Nothing was there. Snow everywhere. Nothing melted. No marks or anything. That's St. Elmo's fire. If I remember the name correctly. I can't recall what causes it exactly. But I do know that it's just a natural thing that happens. Especially in the mountains. I think it might be related to altitude. But I can't really remember. Someone calling my phone and asking about the car I owned. It was a dealership. I think a Ford one. They had my number. Apparent records of me being there, but I have never owned a Ford or even been to the dealership. Is your identity secure? This is the scariest story yet. I'd rather fight demons than identity fraud. Happened when I was 15. Living with my mom in a creepy old house that she insisted was haunted. I had a few minor spooky incidents but this one was undoubtedly the spookiest. I was home by myself in bed. Laying on my stomach with Fresh Prince playing on the TV as I fall asleep. Suddenly, the TV changes to a channel with just static. This was scary to me by itself. I open my eyes but don't move. A few seconds go by. Then I feel something push down on my bed right next to my foot. Multiple times really quickly. Like somebody put their hand on the bed and just started pushing up and down. This was so scary I was kinda petrified for a few moments. Then I finally get the courage to get up. Turn the light on and the TV back to fresh prints. Then stayed up for a few more hours. My only real ghost experience. I've not seen it personally, but I'm a youth group leader at church. And in the basement there's a dead-end hallway where multiple kids have seen the girl in the white dress that occasionally chases kids while we play games throughout the church. Which basically just sounds like a ghost. I've heard enough encounters and seen enough genuine fright from some of them that I fully believe the girl exists down there. I believe in spiritual warfare. Demons. And ghosts of sorts anyways. But this one is one story I'm always wary of when I go down there. I was at a Starbucks once when a really old guy walked in. Wearing a suit and a party wig. Sat down to the table next to mine and proceeded to unpack a King coffee machine from his backpack and started making his own coffee in the middle of a coffee shop. He also had a paper chopping board and 2 entire grilled chickens which he ate in one sitting, the board too. I was once backing out of a driveway and there were 2 cars coming from each direction. And the first car passes and begins to pass the second oncoming car. I waited, but the second oncoming car never came from behind the first car. I even looked the other way to see if it did pass, but there was no car there. Blew my mind. While I was on a trip to St. Petersburg with my classmates, I heard gunshots from a distance. We were outside about to go see bridges light up in the night and bask in its glory as something resembling gunshots happened. Then I heard an ambulance nearby and some reddish liquid on the road leading to another street. I assumed there was blood. Nobody believed me to this day. I might have been seeing things, or all the things happening were just coincidences. I am going to preface this by saying I don't believe in anything remotely paranormal. I awoke one morning this January to find some very strange footprints in my front yard. There were 4 individual boot prints in the snow. In the middle of my yard. They were completely isolated with none leading to them or away. It had not snowed overnight and wasn't particularly windy such that some tracks may be covered. I have been racking my brain as to an explanation but am drawing complete blanks. The only remotely plausible theory is that a very devoted prankster had strung a rope slackline across my front yard. Shimmied halfway across to make a few boot prints. Then climbed back and removed the rope. I am 99.9% sure this was not the case, of course. Any ideas? This isn't the best thread to read. Just before going to sleep. Just saying. I've told this story before on Reddit. This happened 2 years ago. I was half asleep and felt like I was being watched. Looked out my window and saw an old man hunched over with a walking stick and a crow on his shoulder standing in my front yard about 150 feet away. He looked right at me and I say this bright blue from one of his eye. I rubbed my eye and he had disappeared and there was a murder of crows left standing around where he was. This was in the early hours of the morning. A lot of people said I saw Odin and I find that probably the hardest thing to believe. About 5 months ago I was setting up my winter camping spot on my property and I heard a growl behind me and saw 2 coyotes staring at me. I picked up the firewood axe and yelled and they whimpered and laid down. I took a step forward and they ran. It was very f***ing weird because it was abnormal behavior for coyotes. Spent the whole of middle school and high school in a boarding school. The dormitories were divided into 7 and everyone shared one washroom with multiple showers, toilets and sinks. You could only get to the washroom by leaving your dormitory as it was located in a separate building. This meant that if you needed to ease yourself at night, you would need to go outside. One night, I was having a runny stomach and then decided to take a shitty. I entered the washroom and saw a headless person wearing white pajamas taking a shitty. I ran back to the dormitory and tried to sleep through the night. But I couldn't. I ended up taking that dump that same night. But I'm not proud of the way I did it. Forget the headless ghost. I want to know how you managed that dump. I was living in San Antonio, TX at the time. My dad had noticed some UFO-like lights in the sky. They would disappear and reappear in a different location. And before we knew it, jets from Lockland AFB were flying over 3 to be exact. One of them was flying really low. My parents' house was on the far outskirts of town, so the sky was clear, especially from the roof of his house. This went on for about 30-ish minutes. But the last time I saw the lights, they lit up from left to right, perfectly outlining a round UFO. A jet then went speeding toward the direction of the lights. That was the last time we saw the lights, but the jet hung around in the sky from about an hour before leaving.